Welcome back, everybody, to Sun Journal Sports Talk. I'm Justin Pelletier, joined here by Cal Oakes and Kevin Mills. And we are here to break down the upcoming basketball tournament here, the schoolboy and schoolgirl basketball tournament. Today we're going to focus on Western Class C on the girls' side of things, and any conversation over in Western Class C, locally anyway, this year has to start with the J Tigers. Mr. Roach?
The J Tigers, well, I've seen twice this week, the MVC championship game, followed by the game that actually really mattered the next night against NYA in the regional prelims. They kind of floated through that one is the way I would describe that. They were still kind of geared up and jacked up for Monday night's win, and then they didn't play a vintage game on Tuesday night. But certainly they are the team that is not many teams in Class E have been able to assert themselves over the others, but Jay has been able to do that this year just a little bit and get that second seed, which will they hope will carry them into the final. They have good balance. They have Liz LeBlanc, Player of the Year, but she's not the kind of player that's going to run for 20 or 25 points a game. She does a lot of the little things, and good point guard Mallory Bonavie, and some height inside, some strength inside with Hillary Dean. So I'm sure Kevin's seen them a few times.
I was going to say, yes. Kevin, you kind of knew this was coming a little bit earlier in the season.
Yeah, last year was a down year, especially because Liz got hurt. So losing Liz LeBlanc was a big loss, and they lost some seniors too. So it was kind of a rebuilding year last year, and so this year they had that whole group back with a year of seasoning, and they had Liz coming back. So they were definitely one of the favorites in the MVC, and so it's no surprise that they're the MVC champs, and it's no surprise that they ended up second, and they nearly missed being the top seed.
And of course, we talk about the disparity sometimes between the Western Main Conference and the MVC. Kind of goes backwards in this conference, doesn't it, with the Class C schools?
100% goes backwards. I mean, you're talking the last time a non-current MVC team won the Class C tournament, I think it was 1988 or something like that.
Actually,
was there a more recent?
Well, Western Main Conference teams have only been to the regional final in Western C 3 times.
Yeah.
And they've lost all 3. And I don't know the record off the top of my head, but it's which is surprising. But
come on, Kevin.
It's significant over the last 20 years that the MVC. It's like 17 and 55, where the MVC has won most of those.
Just by example, the fact that Waynfleet was able to beat an MVC team, I believe they beat an MVC team in the quarterfinals last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was a rare thing, as Kevin pointed out that statistic. So for them to get through a couple of MVC teams and win the bracket would be something entirely different. And I think the thing about this year's tournament, regardless of what conference you're from, that stands out is that the lower seeded teams have had some success during the regular season against the higher seeded teams. Waynfleet's one example. The only Class C team they lost to was St. Dom's, who was their first round opponent.
and you look at perfect segue of that is a matchup in the 3-6 matchup between Carabec and Winthrop. You've got Winthrop going in against a Carabec team who's seeded 3 points higher, and yet Winthrop defeated Carabec both times they played this season.
And actually, Halldale beat Jay.
Yeah.
So that's the way it's been all year in the MVC, where everybody has knocked each other off, and I kind of totaled the records of all the tournament teams against each other, and they're all like 4-4 or 5-4. There's no team that has an outstanding dominance over the rest of the Western C field.
So we got so used to for 10 years seeing Dirigo going into the tournament 17-1, 18-0, and it's just not going to happen this year. I mean, there were 6 or 7 teams in that 13-14 win bracket in the MVC, and it's going to make for a fantastic tournament.
I can't think of a time where the 8th seed or the 9th seed, whatever team came out of that bracket, has actually beaten the number 1 seed.
In a long time.
This was a year I really thought was one of the hardest to pick, and it actually reached the point where I almost thought it was kind of like it's just as easy to pick by lottery, put names in a hat and draw them out, and which I actually did the other day,
just to see how
it worked. And Dirigo was the first team that I picked out of the hat.
And, I was going to say, Dirigo's an interesting team because they aren't Dirigo of old, so to speak, but they're still very much alive in this thing.
They're a young team, but they're a good team. They had the second best defense in the MVC, and they've got some balance. Jane Hebert coming back from knee injuries, had a great year. Hannah Knight, Dirigo, and most basketball fans in the state know the Knight name. Thomas's younger sister, Holly's younger sister, Morgan Hutchins. They've got an inside game, an outside game. They're just really still young, and they're still they're one of those teams that you might think might be a year away, but I think they've proven themselves against most of the MVC, and when they get to Augusta, who knows what might happen.
Now, that said, they go up against a Mount Abram team and Kenny Norton, who's an all-state caliber type player for them.
And they've lost twice to Mount Abram.
Right, so that's going to be a tough matchup right off the top.
Yeah, and Mount Abram has experience in that court. They lost last year in the first round, but Kenny was on the team that won the states, 2 years before. And, they're kind of in the same position they were that year, where nobody really kind of thought, they might be one of the favorites, and then all of a sudden they got hot and ran away with it. And Kenny's probably the best player in the tournament, talent-wise. She does a little bit of everything, and she is the type of player that could go out and score 20-something points a night, win the games by herself. And they're actually the highest scoring team in the field. I think actually Waynfleet might be one on Abrams too.
That's another thing about this tournament is a lot of these teams weren't in the tournament, or at least in the quarterfinal round in Augusta last year. Winthrop didn't make it, Jay didn't make it, Dirigo didn't make it. So some of the higher seeded teams, some of the teams that we could see going deep into this tournament, don't have a lot of recent experience playing on that floor and in that building.
The only teams that were in the semis last year were St. Dom's and Waynfleet.
And St. Dom's and Waynfleet, they match up right off the top. You've got St. Dom's coming out of that low-seeded spot, but they have that confidence knowing that at some point they've defeated Waynfleet, the only Class C loss Waynfleet's had this year.
And that's a huge difference because they've gone in against Waynfleet, to the regular season every year, and they've always lost. I don't know when the last time was they beat Waynfleet. It's been years. And so I think if they hadn't beat them, they'd be a little, can we beat Waynfleet? They don't have that problem now. They know they can beat Waynfleet. And I think Waynfleet is a little worried. They beat us last time. They know it. And so St. Dom's kind of struggled against Trait the other night. They'll need a better game, certainly. But I think they go in to Tuesday's game knowing they can beat the Flyers. And that's a big plus for them.
And they've won a game on that court. They beat Hebron Academy last year to get to the semifinals, lost to the eventual Western Maine champions in Madison. So they've got the confidence they can go in there, and the background and the atmosphere are not going to bother them.
And they finished the year going, they're 11-2 now after a 2-4 start. So they've really been putting together the second half of the year.
We're going to try this again, guys. 10 words or less. Who's coming out of this bracket? I know this is a tough one because it's such a jumbled bracket.
First?
No, this time Kevin gets to go first.
Cal might be left with 10 seconds.
10 words right there.
3 letters. J. J-A-Y.
All right.
I think their defense, they allowed 33 points, and I think they lost all their games by 4 points. So I think in a tournament this close, they've got all the makings to pull it off.
Yeah.
That was close to 10.
Mount Abram, just call it a hunch.
Fair enough. John, just a hunch.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for joining us. This has been Kevin Mills and Cal Oaks. I'm Justin Pelletier for Sports Talk here at the Sun Journal. We'll see you on the flip side. Have a good day.